Welcome back, everybody, to Niners Now. I'm your host, Brady Grustas, at GrustasBrady on X. You can follow me there. And we've got two new 49ers to talk about today. The waiver claims have gone through. The 49ers have brought in two new faces while also filling out their practice squad and adding some new guys down there as well. And of course, stick around until later in the show because episode 2 of The Build came out last week, and there were some really great moments that I've just got to talk about. Before we begin, though, go ahead and subscribe down below, leave a like, leave a comment, and let's get into it. So on Wednesday, every team had the opportunity to claim players from the waiver wire, and the 49ers made one successful claim. Defensive tackle Jordan Jefferson from the Jaguars. That's Jordan Jefferson, not Justin Jefferson. I do wish it was Justin Jefferson, but that's okay. Jordan Jefferson was a fourth-round pick by Trent Baalke of the Jaguars last year, and he didn't play very much for Jacksonville in his rookie year. He played in 8 games, only 151 snaps total, but he graded out nicely for PFF, above average as a pass rusher and as a run defender. Jefferson's definitely more known for his run defense. He looks every bit of 6'4", 315, which is what he's listed as. He's very strong, and he disengages from blockers well in the run game. He can really be a plug in the middle, and he's still only 23 years old. He's also athletic. He had a pretty solid RAS score coming out of LSU. And while I'm not sure he's ever going to be much of a pass rusher, he might have a cleanup sack or two. He did have 1 sack last year as a rookie. Jefferson played pretty well in the preseason. He was just buried on the depth chart with the Jags, especially once they traded for Colin Saunders. There just wasn't enough room for Jefferson. Speaking of, since Jefferson was a waiver claim, the 49ers had to waive Evan Anderson off the 53-man roster in order to make room for Jefferson. I guess the Niners are hoping that Evan Anderson will make it to the practice squad, considering there's only one practice squad spot available. We'll talk more on that later, though. We've been watching Anderson's chances at the 53 closely all summer long, and I thought it would be between him and Valdez for that last defensive tackle spot, but instead, the Niners cut both of them, and they went with Jordan Jefferson instead. The Niners also put Jacob Cowing on injured reserve on Wednesday and brought back their punter, Thomas Morstead. But why cut Morstead in the first place if they just knew that Cowing was going to go on injured reserve? Well, if Cowing went on IR on Tuesday, he would have automatically counted as a return designation, whereas today, he only counts as a return if he does actually heal up. It's not a great sign that the Niners want to keep the option open that Cowing might miss the entire year, but it is a good sign that they have more flexibility in case Cowing does need to miss the entire year with his hamstring problem. The Niners are also going to have to make room for their newest wide receiver, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Yesterday, MVS was cut by the Seahawks, and it was reported that he was choosing between the 49ers and playing with his old pal Aaron Rodgers on the Steelers. And luckily for us, he chose the Niners. MVS has had a pretty up and down career. He's been a contributor on some Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes-led offenses, but he's also been signed off the street midway through the season after dealing with drop problems. That's what happened last year when he joined the Saints, and for a few games, he was a pretty nice player for Clint Kubiak's offense. We talked about this on the show yesterday, but he followed Kubiak to Seattle and spent the offseason there before being cut on Tuesday. Now, armed with all the Seahawks' offensive intel, he joins the 49ers to become their third healthy wide receiver on the 53-man roster. MVS is a good fit for what the Niners need. He's cheap and he knows the offense. He can also bring a speed element that the rest of the team just doesn't really have right now. MVS has been a deep threat his entire career, and even if the 49ers don't throw it to him, defenses have to respect his speed and adjust to it, because if they don't, it could be a 60-yard touchdown easily. So when defenses do prepare for the potential deep ball, that leaves a lot of room underneath for guys like George Kittle, Ricky Pearsall, and Christian McCaffrey to really go to work. Of course, we'll see who gets released to make room for MVS. That move should happen on Thursday when you guys are seeing this video. But so far, I'm happy with this signing. I'm happy with the fit. Welcome MVS to San Francisco. Now, the Niners weren't the only team to make a wide receiver move on Wednesday. Detroit traded Tim Patrick to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Carolina traded Adam Thielen back to the Vikings. And the Patriots cut both Kendrick Bourne and Javon Baker. Now, you may remember from yesterday's show that the Patriots had kept 8 wide receivers on their initial roster, and that number is all the way down to 6 now with those 2 cuts. The 49ers are reportedly very interested in bringing in Bourne, according to Matt Mayoko, but they've got competition. Apparently, the Commanders and Vikings are also trying to get Bourne on board. Bourne would be a really great fit for the Robert Woods role that I was talking about on yesterday's show. He played that Jauan Jennings big slot position before Jennings did back in 2019 with clutch catches on third down and in the red zone. Bourne is also such a big personality, and I'd love to see him back in the receiver room. He's a fun guy, always doing dances and, posting videos online, that sort of stuff. I love KB. The issue, though, with bringing in Kendrick Bourne is that this room is suddenly really crowded. Sure, only 3 guys are healthy, right? How crowded can it be? But by the time week 3 hits, we're expecting Jordan Watkins and Demarcus Robinson to be back. So now you're at 5 healthy guys. Then you've got Jacob Cowing and Brandon Ayuk coming back after that. So we're up to 7. Let's say we keep Jauan Jennings and he ends up playing. That's 8 wide receivers. And that's all before bringing in Bourne, which would put us at 9 wide receivers if everyone is healthy at the same time. And on Wednesday, John Lynch said in his press conference that Russell Gage will be on the 53-man roster. Does that put us at 10 wide receivers if we bring in Bourne as well? I mean, you have to assume that there are some cuts coming if a Bourne move were to happen. You can't really cut Sky Moore until Jacob Cowing is back because he's the returner. Maybe MVS gets cut once Watkins and Robinson are healthy. Maybe you don't sign Kendrick Bourne at all. Maybe you even trade Jauan Jennings. There are so many potential outcomes for this wide receiver room that don't even count guys like Robbie Chosen or Malik Turner being activated. Those guys have been on the roster all summer long. Now, the math at wide receiver is going to be pretty tricky until probably November, if I had to guess. But bringing in MVS and potentially Kendrick Bourne as well are moves that make a lot more sense if Jauan Jennings is traded. I know, John Lynch said on Wednesday that they weren't going to trade Jennings, but I can't shake the feeling that patience is really starting to wear thin in San Francisco. If you watch that press conference on Wednesday, neither Lynch or Shanahan looked particularly happy when talking about Jauan's situation. Jauan has been awesome for this team for quite some time. Let's not forget, in 2023, if the Niners had pulled off that Super Bowl victory, very real chance Jauan Jennings wins Super Bowl MVP. Like, he has been a really, really good member of this team since he joined. He brings excellent toughness. He brings excellent attitude to this offense. But man, things could not be going worse right now for Jennings. He's got a lingering calf issue, He hasn't practiced in a month, and I guess he does have a cash issue because he wants a long-term big money deal. I don't think it makes sense to pay Jennings right now, especially not with Ayuk already commanding big money. I just think it might be time for the 49ers to trade Jauan Jennings. And yeah, this absolutely will hurt their wide receiver room. I get it. But the motto all offseason long has been get younger, get cheaper, and get healthier. Jauan is 29, holding out for a new deal, and has a calf injury. If I'm the Niners, I'd try to trade him, and I'd try to trade him to an AFC team who can pay him and needs wide receivers. And to me, if I'm looking around the league, that narrows it down to 3 teams: the Steelers, the Titans, and the Jets. So what would those 3 potentially offer for Jauan Jennings? Let's take a look. Pittsburgh has already got a highly paid receiver in DK Metcalf, but they really don't have much else at that position after they cut Robert Woods. With Aaron Rodgers being 40 million years old, or however old he is, the Steelers' Super Bowl window is really, really small. So why not take advantage of the opportunity you have now and build a physical, violent offense with sure-handed receivers like DK Metcalf and Jauan Jennings? Rodgers is on a very small contract by quarterback standards, so there is definitely wiggle room when it comes to their cap space. I think Jennings could be a really great fit for the Steelers' number 2 wide receiver. What would the compensation be, though? It's hard to say exactly, but my best guess would be a draft pick and a player. What about tight end Darnell Washington? He's an absolute mammoth of a human being and a dominating blocker. With the Steelers bringing in Jonnu Smith this offseason, Washington was pushed down to third on the tight end depth chart. So swapping your third tight end and a fifth-round pick for Jauan Jennings feels like fair value for the Steelers, and that's a win for both sides. For the Niners, Washington would be a young, developmental, blocking tight end who could eventually take over for Luke Farrell or, hopefully, fill the void of Kittle's blocking once he retires. Now, I talked about the Titans in my last video discussing a potential Jauan Jennings trade, and I still think that they're one of the best fits in the entire NFL for Jennings. They've got Cam Ward, who's a young gunslinger type of quarterback, and the more reliable receiving threats that he can get early in his career, the better. The Titans currently have 6 wide receivers on their 53. They've got Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, Van Jefferson, Shamari DK, Alec Iomanor, and Bryce Oliver. Needless to say, Jauan Jennings would be a huge upgrade for them and improve the depth on that roster considerably. The Titans, they have no real safety blanket at wide receiver. Ridley's a nice player, but he's not that much better than Jennings. And having a guy like Jennings with a huge catch radius is really useful for a young quarterback. Plus, Jennings' blocking would bring some real attitude back to the Titans' offense, which has been pretty limp since Derrick Henry left. The Titans are top 10 in the NFL in cap space, and I think with Cam Ward on a rookie contract, they'd have plenty of room to pay Jauan Jennings. And I'm going to bring back the trade compensation I talked about last time as well. The Titans would trade safety Amani Hooker and a 6th-round pick for Jauan. Hooker is this really versatile chess piece on defense, and Saleh could move him all over the formation. Amani's a find-the-ball type of player, man. He had 5 picks and 2 forced fumbles last year. And yeah, the Niners have Marquise Siegel, who's been pretty impressive this summer. But I think the safety depth could certainly be improved, and it may be nice for Siegel to continue developing his coverage skills before he fully takes over as the starter. Also, Amani's on a 1-year deal. So if you want to move Siegel to next year, or if you move him to starter, I should say, next year, you just let Amani walk and you get a compensatory pick. It's easy. The Titans have their promising rookie Kevin Winston Jr. at safety, so they won't miss Amani all that much, and they'll upgrade dramatically at wide receiver. This really feels like a win-win trade if I've ever seen one. And finally, how about the New York Jets? This is also a team looking for an identity. With the Lions, Coach Aaron Glenn was a guy who really embraced the Dan Campbell, violent, gritty environment. And Jauan Jennings fits that culture perfectly. And the Jets have worse versions of Jauan all over their roster, right? You talk about Josh Reynolds. You talk about Tyler Johnson. I don't know. Who's the other guy? Alan Lazard? There you go. Jauan Jennings is better than all of those players, and Justin Fields needs someone to throw to besides Garrett Wilson. We've talked about his blocking already, but Breece Hall had a really poor year last season for the Jets. Bringing in Jauan to block for him should certainly improve that outside run game and bring Breece back to his old self. Plus, the Jets could afford to pay Jennings on a 2 or 3 year deal, given that Fields is on a pretty cheap contract. I think it makes a lot of sense. And as for the return, the Niners could certainly be interested in a former Saleh pickup like, Leonard Taylor or Quantez Stiggers. But I think in this case, the best package would just be straight up a 4th rounder from the Jets in exchange for Jauan Jennings. Maybe it's conditional based on playtime, whatever you want to do. I think that would be the best outcome when it comes to the Jets. So those are my 3 best fits for Jauan Jennings: the Steelers, the Titans, and the Jets. Which trade package do you like most for the 49ers? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Now, it's time to talk about waivers and about the practice squad. Many of my targets for the Niners that I mentioned in yesterday's video were claimed by other teams, including Asa Poll, Juju Brents, Willie Lampkin, Trey Palmer. All those guys were claimed. However, none of the players that the 49ers waived were claimed, and that includes UDFA standout defensive tackle Sebastian Valdez. Valdez is back with the 49ers practice squad, thank goodness. He had a really awesome summer, and I think he's got a real chance to make the 53 next year. The 49ers did lose Jeff Wilson to the Dolphins practice squad, and Chaz Surratt is now on the Seahawks 53-man roster. We'll see him week 1. But the Niners announced that Junior Bergen, Trevis Gipson, Curtis Robinson, Derek Canteen, William Bradley King, Eli Apple, Robbie Chosen, Malik Turner, Jalen Graham, Drake Nugent, Braden Willis, and Nick Zakel have all signed with the practice squad. Those are official announcements from the team's PR. Eli Apple returns for a veteran option at cornerback, and the Niners were able to bring back all of Trevis Gipson, Curtis Robinson, and Robbie Chosen. I think all 3 of those guys will get elevated to the game day roster at some point this year, so getting all 3 of them back was pretty huge. Now, there's a couple of spots that have not been officially filled yet, but they have been filled unofficially. There's a report out right now that running back Sincere McCormick is signing with the Niners practice squad, which would make sense considering the Niners lost Jeff Wilson. Fantasy football players may remember Sincere McCormick as this kind of flash-in-the-pan waiver wire pickup for a really beat-up Raiders running back room last year. And McCormick was honestly pretty efficient for the Raiders. He ran for, I believe, 4.7 yards per carry last year. He runs with pretty good power, and he's young. He's only 24 years old. I'm pretty excited about this addition. McCormick definitely has a lot more juice left in the tank than Jeff Wilson. If the McCormick signing becomes official, which we expect it to, that means that there are only 2 spots unofficially left on the practice squad, and one of them is going to go to a quarterback. Now, a lot of the QBs that I had my eye on were all snatched up super quick. Tommy DeVito by the New England Patriots, Jake Haener by the Saints, Kyle McCord by the Eagles, and Curtis Rourke, I suppose, has a chance to be back this year to play that QB3 spot. But in the meantime, the Niners announced on Wednesday that they are signing former New York Jet Adrian Martinez to be their QB3 on the practice squad. That move is not official yet, but John Lynch did announce it in his press conference, so we're expecting that to come through tomorrow or Thursday, which should be when you're seeing this video. Martinez is a California kid born just outside of Fresno. He spent some time at Nebraska, Kansas State, and with the Lions before signing with the Birmingham Stallions in the summer of 2024. Martinez was awesome as a Stallion. He was the UFL MVP and won the UFL Championship MVP when the Stallions won the championship. And Martinez really impressed this summer with the Jets. He's aggressive, and he'll attack the intermediate and deep areas of the field with some pretty good touch. I like the move. I am curious to see if Martinez can develop enough to challenge Curtis Rourke next year for that QB3 spot. So, we've got Adrian Martinez and Sincere McCormick unofficially filling in. Who do you think should fill the 49ers' last practice squad spot? My best guess is probably Evan Anderson, but I'm open to suggestions. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Now, for our final segment, another episode of the 49ers Behind the Scenes series, The Build, released last week. And this one went over the joint practices and preseason games with the Broncos and Raiders. We got to see Fred Warner mic'd up in the practice against the Broncos, and man, it is just so fun to watch Fred fly around and make plays. We also got to see Fred reunite with Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga. And man, I already miss Dre Greenlaw so much. He was one of my favorite players, and I was so devastated when he popped his Achilles. I'm wishing him all the best in Denver this year, that's for sure. There was also a heavy focus on linebackers in this episode, I noticed. Fred was mic'd up, linebackers coach Johnny Holland was mic'd up, D. Winters was mic'd up, and there was a whole little section of the video with just Fred and Dre. Watching Coach Holland was pretty cool, though. You don't always get to see a coach's perspective on the sideline. He had a really nice moment coaching up Tatum Bethune, which I liked. And of course, we did see D. Winters mic'd up in the Raiders game, and it was sick seeing him bring down Ashton Genty and celebrate while mic'd up. Winters really seems to be embracing that leadership role that comes with being a starter. We saw him break down the huddle in that Raiders game, and I think he looks a lot more mature than he used to. One of my favorite parts of the build so far is seeing players who used to be these wide-eyed young guys really mature and become the veterans in the room. Winters had a nice segment talking about Nick Martin and how he's helping Martin along and learn as a rookie. We've seen in real life how well Martin's been developing. He went off against the Chargers. So shout out to Winters for helping the young guy out. And last but not least, we got to see George Kittle mic'd up, which is always a blast. George Kittle's so funny, man. He was mic'd up during the Raiders joint practice, and we heard him going back and forth with Max Crosby a bit. They're both crazy people. They seem to get along really well, honestly, which makes sense. They're certainly cut from a similar cloth. And Kittle gave some shout-outs to Demarcus Robinson and Luke Farrell, complimenting both their personalities and their games. Kittle went into more detail with Farrell because they're teammates in the tight end room. He talked a lot about how Farrell's really quickly picked up on the nuances of the Niners running game. And that's a good sign, considering we might need to run more two tight end sets this year. So if you haven't seen the build, I would definitely recommend that you watch. I think the next few episodes will probably cover the Chargers game and the roster cutdown period, and I'm really curious to see how they'll handle those. Who do you want to see featured on the build next? I'm going with Mykel Williams. I want to see what the rookie's all about. Leave your answers in the comments below, and let me know down below if you enjoyed this episode. Leave a comment, leave a like, and let me know if there's any topics that you'd like to see me cover. Thank you all for watching, and subscribe for 49ers videos 5 days a week. I'm Brady Grustas, at GrustasBrady on X. This has been Niners Now, and I'll see you tomorrow.